He got sunk twice. The second time he was in the Atlantic.
Marketing and
oh my God.
Propaganda.
Actually, what I was...
Welcome to Progressive Soup. My name is David Stevenson, co-host with Emily Volpintesta and Henry Pietras. We just finished up a show with our good friend Al Robinson, talking about a lot of different things, race relations. And let's move on to something equally interesting. Marketing and propaganda.
Yeah.
And
which one is it? Marketing or propaganda?
I'll let Henry give a little background on where his roots are, and which gave him his perspective on how to look at the world and look at marketing and propaganda.
Well, I was born in Poland, and I came to the United States when I was 12. So and that was in 1965. So I lived under communist rule. I went to schools, in a school in Poland. I finished, I'm a proud graduate of 5th grade in Poland. In 4th grade, we were made to learn Russian. That was a requirement. So, you know, I had 2 more years to go, and I would have been done with school.
Wow.
So Poland was a communist satellite of the Soviet Union then.
I was a voracious reader, and, you know, I read a lot of books, but a lot of the books were oriented. You know this old saying, I think it was... Dan Brown, he said, you know, winners get to write history.
Yep.
Well, that's what, in retrospect, that's what I experienced, because a lot of the books I read were about, you know, war and, you know, how heroic the Poles were and the communists were, never mind the other side.
Right.
You know, including the English, the British. But I was exposed to 2 different kinds of spins. One was the communist thinking. And then the other was the Catholic influence. And since it was separated, to get Catholic education, you had to go to a separate facility, which was run by the church.
In Poland.
In Poland,
right.
yeah. So I was exposed to, you know, the Western world as well, because we listened to Radio Free Europe, Voice of America. We listened to programs, though I didn't understand some of it, simply because it was in languages I didn't understand. But ever since then, I love to listen to languages. Even now, I listen to shortwave radio. And I listen to Chinese, even though I wouldn't understand any Chinese. But I get exposed to languages, which I still love. I still love to imitate and get good at different languages. Like I know a little bit of French, some German, and of course Polish. I'm fluent in Polish.
Right.
So when I came to this country, obviously I got my high school education here in Danbury High School. I got my biology degree at Western Connecticut State, but I ended up going to, last semester I ended up getting involved with computers, and that was it. Biology was an afterthought after I got involved in computers.
Wow.
So and now you're somewhat in the field of advertising, in a sense that you're the computer side of it, technology side of it.
Right,
and
because you were saying that when you hear marketing, you think of it as propaganda. I mean,
yeah, it's spin.
Right.
I mean, it's, you know, if you look at what you see in the media, somebody has an agenda, and you know, you get very good at figuring out what that agenda is.
Right.
Okay, is it about informing the listener, or is it about sensationalizing whatever they're talking about to, you know, to get return or get viewership?
Right.
And I just find that most of the media I see is not about informing the listener or
Right.
the viewer. It's mostly about the sensationalism, the picking things that shouldn't be addressed. I think if you look at most of the stuff on TV, you don't see a discussion of issues.
No.
Unless you watch somebody like maybe a Bill Moyers and sometimes a Charlie Rose.
Right.
Or if you watch C-SPAN, okay? C-SPAN does a very good job because they just perk their TV cameras and no
Right.
commentary, okay? It's whatever the speakers say, that's it.
Forces people to think.
Yeah, there's
and
no
respond
interpretation.
and to
Yeah.
assimilate, and then put back out their take on the situation, and that's quite often something entirely different than what they've heard, because they're commenting on what they've heard.
Yeah.
So you encourage people to be free thinkers. You're critical thinkers.
I critical thinkers,
Right.
yes. Get informed.
Right.
At this point in time, after a year, you cannot call Bernie a socialist. I mean,
Right.
if you're doing that, you're purposely being ignorant.
Right.
Okay. He's a democratic socialism, and even there, he's trying to model himself after what's happening in Europe, in the European countries.
Right.
Where they have solutions to problems that we're struggling with.
Right. And Michael Moore presented those issues
Yes.
in his film.
Yep.
Yeah. Where to invade next. you
Yeah.
know.
Absolutely.
Right.
And that's a good start. It's a good primer on how people live in Europe.
Right.
They don't necessarily have a perfect lives.
Right.
But they've got solutions that are way over in many cases, like education, for instance,
Right.
prisons. I mean, look
Healthcare.
at yeah,
Yeah.
single payer.
And it's almost like they're making it, they don't want people to travel to other countries. Like they're making traveling so difficult now because they don't want us to know that there is another way of living out there.
Yeah.
They want to discourage us from being exposed to these other cultures, and they don't want us to know. They want to keep us ignorant,
Well, up to a point, I think it's our job to get informed.
Right.
As citizens, it's our job
Yes.
to get informed.
Yeah.
Personal
That's responsibility, certainly. Yeah, but there should be some encouragement, and I think the schools nowadays do a much better job than they used to in developing critical thinking skills in students. I think they do teach our young to differentiate, to recognize the difference between fact and opinion, because it's a very clear difference. I mean, you can identify a fact, and you can identify what is a fact with someone else's overlayment on it.
Can you give an example? I mean, doesn't each fact, when we talk about stuff we learn in history, isn't that someone's interpretation of what happened?
Here's a simple one.
Okay.
Fact. It's 32 degrees out. Opinion. Damn, it's cold out. Because that's subjective.
That's an interpretation.
And for some people, 32 degrees might not be that cold.
Yeah.
So they can fight that out amongst themselves as far as whether it's cold out or not. But the fact is, what is the temperature?
Right.
And you can apply that to anything else. You can apply it to anywhere you want to go. In science we know to be it evolves a tiny bit, little by little, as we learn more. But still, fact is still fact.
Yeah.
You can recognize things in the world around us and do scientific investigation and determine what the facts are.
Or 32 degrees Fahrenheit could be 0 degrees Celsius. And,
Yeah, it's still the
you know.
same number. It's
Yeah.
just
Right.
a different scale.
Absolutely,
But they're both facts.
But
Right.
climate change is a good example.
Right.
There is climate change. We know that. But opinion is injected into this matter.
Yeah. Well,
And-
it depends on how we discuss it. Okay,
Well,
if you're gonna,
yeah.
if you're
Right.
gonna put yourself in the turf of science,
Yeah.
then you have to deal with facts and data. Okay, so for someone to come in and say, "I don't believe it," okay, well, fine,
Right.
that's your belief. But you know what? If you want to reject what science is telling you, then produce your data.
Right.
Okay, that refutes it.
Well,
if
look-
you're not, then you're being lazy and you're not being,
Yeah.
Right.
honest.
Well, our good friend Marty Heiser, well, maybe not your good friend, but Marty and I are pretty good friends. Marty had this thing about and Marty's a hockey fan, so this fit into his worldview. Something about a hockey stick showing that hockey stick pointing upward, so that the temperature of the world's going up, and then if you took the points on the graph and eliminated the points that didn't make your point,
right,
didn't prove what you wanted to believe, and only kept the ones that sort of kind of prove what you did want to believe. And I was using only half of the facts, half of the evidence. He showed that the temperature went up and then it's leveled off, like a hockey stick is gone and then it flattens out. Not true, absolutely incorrect. But when you work backwards from the presumption, you work backwards from the conclusion that you want to believe, and then look for a series of facts or a set of facts or a set of points on a graph that prove your point, that prove what you believe. It's not science, but they say it is anyway.
Yeah. Well, John Oliver did a very good discussion of science this Sunday night at 11. Mm-hmm. And maybe 20 minutes of his show was about exactly that, where, some of the things, like, some of the correlations, like, chocolate, for instance, improves your blood pressure or whatever.
Right.
He says there's, the sample size is so small,
right,
and the variables are so many that
right,
you could pretty much make any conclusion out of it.
Right.
And
right.
he says if you're going to produce that kind of a study, then you have to have a peer review.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Okay,
exactly.
so other people can duplicate it. Okay, you can't just take a sample size of 20 people and say,
right,
oh, it applies to the entire world. Okay?
Yeah.
And half these studies are sponsored by companies or pharmaceutical companies that you support.
That's what
right?
one of the things you have to ask is
right,
where's the funding coming
right,
from? Okay, and what's the agenda?
Right.
I mean, if Coca-Cola sponsors something, that favors them,
right,
then then you should be suspicious of that.
Right.
Of that kind of. But it's all about spin again.
Yeah.
It's about marketing. They're trying to produce these bogus studies to make a particular item or whatever
right,
they're trying to sell attractive.
And let's be honest, a lot of people would love to hear any study which gave any shred of evidence that chocolate is good for us in some way. Oh my! How many people would just celebrate knowing that now they can eat chocolate?
Yeah, but you could turn around and what about all that sugar in it? How good is that?
Yeah.
So you could.
right.
It could go in many, many different directions.
Positive,
and unfortunately, a lot of the stuff is
small
not real
positive
science.
benefits. I guess
Or dark chocolate better than milk.
Yeah, dark chocolate.
Yeah, milk
dark
chocolate.
has the dark chocolate has more beneficial effects than milk chocolate. Doesn't necessarily mean it's good for you, but it's better for you than milk chocolate. Not as bad for you. Not as horrible for you as milk chocolate.
So
Not
I
as
would
seriously
encourage
addictive
everybody
as
to
milk
be
chocolate.
critical thinkers.
Of course.
I've on day one, I told my children.
Right.
They went to a Catholic school. I told them, be critical thinkers.
Right,
Question
right.
everything.
Right.
Okay?
What?
And I won't tell you how they turned out. But
No. But I mean, did you want to send them to Catholic school?
It doesn't really matter.
Okay.
As long as, my wife is
Right.
a Catholic school teacher, and
Oh, okay.
so it made sense for them to go. It's our tradition.
Of course.
It's our culture.
Right, of course.
There's a set of beliefs that's consistent with across many different religions, which we subscribe to.
Right.
But you gave them the note of caution to go, listen, question.
Of course.
Every day you go to school, you go, you listen, and you question.
Yep.
Well, I think every parent would want their child to think critically, I would think.
I would hope.
Yeah.
As long as they think like the parents.
Yeah.
Well, we all want our children sort of to be,
Politically, they turn out about the same as me.
we all sort of kind of in our hearts would like our children to think like us,
Right.
but at the same time we want them to be better than us, to think,
Right.
to be better critical thinkers than we
Yeah.
were. And if they come up with different answers for questions, as long as they've used good critical thinking skills to get to that point, then we can't complain.
Well, it's interesting you say that because honestly, I don't know how my father thinks politically, and I wonder if he does that on purpose so that I form my own opinions and don't just form opinions based on his. I don't know how he thinks about anything. Like,
side note, Dr. Red Volpintesta, one of Bethel Street great family physicians.
So
Dave Shapiro,
it's interesting.
Ed Volpintesta, and Ted Blum.
Right.
But yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting that you said that. Now that I think about it, you know, I really don't know. My father's always been very private about what he thinks about things, so forces me to form my own opinions about things.
He lets his thoughts out, but his thoughts are always
Right.
not loud,
Right.
not boisterous. They're very subtle.
Yeah.
And
Right.
and
Well.
not meant to offend anybody,
Right.
but meant to provide a groundwork for discussion.
Right.
And I think that's always a good thing.
And that's all we can ask for. In the
Right.
case of Bernie
Right.
Sanders,
Yes. Yes.
he is a critical thinker. Okay, you look at how he solves problems. You know, when he's faced with something that he hasn't addressed before,
Right.
like Black Lives Matter, he
Right.
stepped back, came back the next day, and had something substantial to offer.
Right.
So I feel like, you know, I understand how he thinks, and I
Right.
understand, you know, if he were faced with a new situation, I know pretty much what he would do. I could guess, you know, like I can guess now what he's going to say next.
Not so much the answer, but certainly the process for arriving at that answer.
Yep.
Whatever that answer may be. Mm-hmm. And the process is the important part. The process is how we take the facts that are out there and look at them and question them, and then look at them again and then question them again,
Yep.
and arrive at a solution that probably will continue to evolve, probably will continue to change a little bit across time, and even Bernie Sanders' opponent in the Democratic primaries has
Right.
evolved quite a bit over the years on issues, and that's good thing for evolution. Reach out to evolution, but Hillary Clinton used to be against gay marriage.
Right.
You know, a lot of people who used to be against gay marriage, our own President Obama,
Yeah. The Pope.
used to be, Pope Francis, who's already been noted as being best Pope ever. Go Pope Francis. Has a lot more understanding about it, and a lot of willingness to go against the critical thinking of.
So how did
of the
Trump
party.
and Clinton come ahead in the primary? That's one thing I would like. Why do you think in Connecticut, Clinton and Trump?
Well,
Okay,
on the Clinton side,
Right.
Or on the Democratic side, I
Yeah.
think, you know, Hillary's been running for 20 years.
Right.
She's very well known.
Right.
Okay, and for some reason, there's a perception that the Clintons have done a lot for the minorities.
Right.
You know, if you're a critical thinker, you know, I challenge you to find the stuff that they did for minorities.
Right.
Bernie's been running for for a year.
Right.
Okay, and you know, on day one, he really didn't have any resources.
Right.
Okay,
Right.
you know, and now he's generated over $200 million out of individual donations.
Wow.
You know, so if anything, Bernie's running out of time or has run out of time.
Right. Right.
But I don't think the conversation goes away. I think we need to continue the conversation desperately. You know, we do have to address the issues the planet is facing.
Right.
We got to address the big money in campaign finance.
Yeah. Race relations, which we talked about with Al.
Mm-hmm.
Healthcare.
And not that we're
Right.
going to agree with Bernie on everything,
Right.
but I think that he needs support, because getting
Right.
Bernie in is just maybe 2% of what needs to
Right,
happen. Okay?
right.
We
Well,
need
he's
to
given
get
us.
people.
He's helped motivate us like a parent would.
Right.
He's helped motivate us to begin to continue the conversation on many different subjects.
And the conversation is now starting where the people involved in the Bernie campaign in Connecticut are now organizing in Waterbury this Sunday on the 15th.
Right.
Did I give you that?
Yep.
That's right.
And,
Yes, you did. Planning meeting, Sunday, May 15th, 2016, 11:30 a.m., Waterbury, Fulton Park Warming Hut. That's in Fulton Park on Cook Street, across from Farmington Avenue. In Waterbury, if you care to join, that'd be excellent.
Can you show that on the screen for the visual people out there?
I may, yeah, okay. We got the auditory and the visual, okay. So at any rate, I'll even hold it up a second time.
I'm a visual person, so I think,
But yeah, it's an opportunity because, as you mentioned, this is not the end of the road. This is just the first step.
Right.
And you saw that in other political campaigns in the past, particularly I'm thinking of the Howard Dean campaign in 2004. He dropped out of the race, took a month off, and began Democracy for America, which is an organization of over 1 million members.
Right.
And it's a progressive organization, and they support candidates, particularly on the local level, because that's where it all begins.
And they're pushing a lot of candidates who are Bernie supporters. Some are not, but who are very progressive. There's 6 candidates they've been recently pushing. What's interesting is that the process that Democracy for America went through is a voting process, okay? So they submitted the candidates for voting as to who the DFA people were going to endorse. And Bernie got, I believe, over around 86% of the vote came Bernie's way, and that's why they're supporting him, because the membership voted. Okay, and Move On did the same thing. I think about 78% of their group voted for Bernie, so they're supporting him. Unlike other organizations where they're endorsing, but the executive board is endorsing, not the membership. Okay, and that's usually, every time I've seen it, it's for Hillary.
That's top down.
Exactly.
And likewise with labor unions, where you had the executive boards of labor unions that through the hard work of the Clintons came out early for Hillary Clinton. Same thing as the superdelegates came out for Hillary Clinton. And then the union membership said, whoa, wait a second. Not really sure about that. And then they looked at the candidates, and the union membership split, and the larger part of it went for Bernie Sanders. And that's grassroots. That's the true definition. When you have folks that have taken the time from busy schedules and don't have anything necessarily to gain from supporting a candidate personally, there's no money filtering to them from a campaign, they take the time and they endorse the candidate that they think best reflects them personally.
Yep.
Do you think Bernie still has a shot in the presidential?
Well, he had an excellent interview on Rachel Maddow last Friday night. It was actually very respectful, and it was a good conversation. And Bernie says he needs to win 65% of the vote in order to get the delegates,
the remaining votes, to get to win the majority of the pledged delegates. Which I think is safe to say, in all reliable statistical evidence, it's not going to happen. But we've got 45 going into the convention. At this moment, we've got 45.1% of the pledged delegates, which is where this 65% comes from, because we have because there's about a fifth of the votes remaining, about 20% of the states remaining, and we have to do obviously proportionally better than a 55 to 45 that we're behind in order to overall come out with a 50, more than 50%. So let's just say it right here. It's probably not going to happen, but we're at 45%. We're going into states where we should do pretty well. We'll be up above that 45%, and 45% of the pledged delegates. Donald Trump doesn't have 45% of the pledged delegates.
Who does?
Because he has the states where if you won 50% plus one, you get the full, the 100% of the delegates. But at any rate, he hasn't gotten 45% of the vote in the Republican. He hasn't got anywhere near that. He's got about a 35%, 35% of the vote so far in his party. We've gotten 45% in our party. And going into the convention, that should count for something, and it's going to translate into the platform being written to reflect a lot of what we believe, what Bernie Sanders believes, and what Hillary Clinton has begrudgingly begun to speak.
Well, right now there's an issue with the way the platform is being designed at the convention, as well as the rules and regulations in addition to credentials. There's 3 committees they set up.
Yep.
I believe the total membership is 25 people.
Yep.
Bernie submitted 40 people
For
all of these, okay?
Yeah.
And so far, only 3 of them got into these committee memberships. In addition, the leaders of the committees are for platform, Governor Malloy. The leader for the rules and regulation, Barney Frank. Both huge Hillary supporters. Okay, so right now the skewing, I'm talking about fairness. Actually, Bernie wrote a letter to Debbie Wasserman Schultz objecting to that.
I saw that. Yeah.
Okay, and hopefully that will change. But right now the rules are totally skewed to the establishment candidate. Bernie effectively would have almost no input whatsoever.
Well, what a lot of us do in November, and this is for Debbie Wasserman Schultz edification, and for the party's edification, what a lot of us are going to do in November is going to reflect the amount of due respect that we get on that Democratic Party platform.
Absolutely,
because that's an important reflection on the primaries so far, the primaries to come, and the overall results, and not so much with Democratic Party members, but with unaffiliated, independent voters that gave Bernie Sanders a leg up in the states that were open primaries. Democratic Party, no political party can win without the independent voters. Democrats can't win, Republicans can't win. Either party and both parties have to reach out.
Right.
And we know the Republicans aren't going to do that because they've got Donald Trump as their candidate, and he's alienated about as many people as you could possibly alienate.
I know.
And so it's those unaffiliated, those independent voters that are going to win
the critical thinkers.
The critical thinkers that are going to decide this election.
Yes.
So let that be a warning.
Yes, a
Professor
lesson.
Soup, David Stevenson, Emily Volpintesta, Henry Pietras, thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
See you next Wednesday.